Hey everybody, it's Kevin.
And I'm Ralph.
And here we are in the cottage kitchen, and today we are baking biscuits.
Southern style.
So we're going to start putting things together here for our biscuits. And actually this recipe was a special request. So Buford, this goes out to you. Buford is a colleague of mine at Wayne State University in Detroit, where I work, and Buford is a fine Southern gentleman. And why he asked me to make biscuits, I don't know, because I'm a Yankee, but I'm going to try my best, Buford. So here's my recipe. We start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we're going to add our salt and our sugar. That's a tablespoon of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. Then baking powder, and this is really important in a biscuit recipe.
Does this not require any yeast?
This does not require yeast. Biscuits are what we call a quick bread, and quick breads use like baking powder, baking soda as leaveners. So it's the baking powder that's going to help these biscuits rise.
And like the name implies, it's quick because yeast takes a while. When you make a bread, it's slow rise.
Exactly. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now just whisk all of these dry ingredients together. The flour, the sugar, the salt, the baking powder. Now some people like to sift their ingredients, their dry ingredients together. You could do that. I think this works just as well. So there we go. Okay, we've got our dry ingredients mixed. Now we're going to add our shortening to the dry ingredients. And I've been keeping this cool in the freezer. Although you don't want it frozen, but I just wanted to put a quick chill on it. And here's what we've got. We've got 6 tablespoons of shortening. This is 3 tablespoons of Crisco and 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now, you could use all Crisco, you could use all butter. I don't think the biscuits are as flaky when you use all butter.
Crisco gives it a more flaky
yes,
texture.
But you know, butter also imparts a lot of great flavor. So we're using both in this case. And so we're going to put in our shortening.
And if you were to use salted butter, you could just cut back a little bit on the salt that you added earlier to the dry ingredients.
Exactly. So in baking, I really like to use unsalted butter.
What's this device again?
This is they call this a pastry blender.
Oh, yeah.
You could also use a couple of knives to do this if you didn't have one of these tools. Because what we're trying to do is now incorporate our shortening or our fat into the flour.
What's this process called?
Cutting in.
Like when you're dancing on the dance floor
That's
to country
right.
music?
Going to cut in, and we're listening to some good country music. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we got a little Wanda Jackson on the hi-fi, and I think we've got some Dolly Parton and Porter Wagner on deck next. And I know you have a couple of favorite female country singers. Who are they?
I do. As a matter of fact, Miss Tammy Wynot and Patsy D. Cline.
Funny.
So we've got, but I actually do like, I would say in terms of country music, you know, I kind of like the old stuff. I love Patsy Cline. I love the old Nashville sound that was so popular in the 60s. Chet Atkins and who else am I thinking of sort of that era? Eddie Arnold. Oh, love him. Love that kind of country music.
I like all the stuff on Sun Records, which is a little more rockabilly, but I like the old time country and western, not that new stuff.
We're almost there. Basically, we want to have our flour kind of resemble a very coarse meal, like a cornmeal or something like that, and so you'd have a lot of really small little pieces. This is actually one of my favorite. I just love doing this. This is the same process if you're making pie dough.
Oh, okay.
Again, it's the fat that's in between the pieces of flour that melt in the oven and create an air space.
And gives the biscuits those flaky layers.
That's exactly it. So, okay, we're good here. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to now go to our liquid. So I've got 3/4 of a cup of milk here. Do not use skim milk in this recipe. Use either whole milk, 2%. If you like buttermilk, use buttermilk by all means. Now I'm going to put this in sort of gradually because there's kind of a number of things going on a lot. Up here at the cottage, it's a fairly humid day, and sometimes when it's humid, I don't need to use as much liquid because you don't want it to be
So this way you're testing it.
Exactly. And so we're going to put in just a little bit more.
Do you want me to pour with my free hand while you stir?
Yeah, okay. Basically what you want is you want the dough to sort of pull away from the side of the bowl. So let's put a little bit more in.
A little more?
A little more.
How does that feel? Does it feel like the right consistency yet?
Yeah, I think that's fine, just like that. And we've used pretty much all the milk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this dough out, and we are going to move it to a floured board, give it a quick knead, and then we're going to cut it and get ready to bake those biscuits. So, right back at you in a minute at the cottage, and we're baking biscuits for Buford this morning. All right, we are ready to start putting our dough out here. I'm just flouring this board, and you know, the biscuit dough is a little on the sticky side. I find that using a spatula really helps in terms of kind of getting it out. I'm going to put a little flour on my hands. This is, you know, kind of a little bit of a messy job just because of the flour, but we're going to knead this dough a little bit. The thing about the biscuits is you don't want to overwork the dough because that does impact the tenderness of the biscuit, but at the same time it does need to be kneaded just so slightly. And again, you're going to keep kind of adding flour, one, to prevent sticking to the board, and after kneading it a little bit, the dough will sort of tighten up just a little bit. But you don't, you know, if you knead this 15 or 20 times, you're good, and I'm just about there. Now, I'm using a 2-inch biscuit cutter, and it's got two sides. It's kind of got a fancy scallop side, and then it's got a plain side. You could also use a glass, a drinking glass,
a juice
glass or something. If you didn't have a biscuit cutter, that would be fine. And but it doesn't really matter, and you can make them any size you want. Obviously, the bigger the size of the biscuit, the you know, the less you're going to yield out of a
So in other words, the thicker you keep the dough, the bigger your biscuits are going to be.
Right. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, gee, my biscuits came out thin. Well, my first question is, how much did you roll the dough out? If you roll this dough out to a 1/2 inch or 1/4 of an inch,
they're not going to rise.
You're going to have really thin biscuits. So if you want thick biscuits with a bigger rise,
keep your patty cake big.
Exactly. And so I go about 1 inch. And the recipe that we just did really yields about around 6 biscuits or so, 6.
Those will be gone by lunchtime.
Now you need to make more, double the recipe. That's all you do. So we're going to start here. I kind of dip my cutter in a little bit of flour, and we're going to start
Around the edge.
Yeah, around the edge. There's one. I'm putting it on an ungreased baking sheet.
Oh, doesn't that look nice? Better than Pillsbury.
2. You know, those biscuits you get in the tube,
Yeah.
I'm not going to disparage anybody. I mean, a lot of people use them.
Yeah, it's a step saver.
It definitely is, and I think it changed a lot of people's habits about how they bake, and certainly convenient, but it's not the same. Now that stuck a little bit, and that's my bad because I forgot to
Flour
put that
dough.
in flour.
So now you take your excess dough and
Yeah,
you
we
put it
kind
back
of put
together.
it back together, and we'll see if we can get another biscuit or 2 out of our scraps. Certainly want to use every bit of the dough that we've made.
You know what would be good with these biscuits is that country honey you got at the Amish store.
You are correct about that, and we will use that. If you have honey grown in your area, now look at this trick. Here's what I'm going to do to try to keep this last shape. We're actually going to do this in reverse. I'm going to press the dough
like Play-Doh.
inside the mold.
Did you have fun with Play-Doh when you were a kid?
I sure did.
I can tell.
I didn't eat it, but I had fun with it.
What do you mean you didn't need it? You didn't need it, but you wanted it.
But
You were going to say about honey?
about honey, if you've got a local beekeeper in your area, there we go. There's our last little biscuit. So there we got a half a dozen. But yeah, if you have a local beekeeper in your area, local honey is great, and actually it's very good for your allergies to consume pollen and things
From your area.
From your area, it
It
helps
do-
you build up an immunity.
Reduces your sneezing in this allergy season.
Okay, ungreased baking pan in a hot oven, 425 degrees. Okay, and in they go, 425 degrees. Somewhere around between 10 and 15 minutes. So let's split the difference and say 13, and we'll check them after 13 minutes. You know, some ovens run fast, some ovens run slow, but 425 for 10 to 15 minutes, and when they're nice and brown, you'll know when they're ready, and we'll bring them out, okay? I'm going to clean things up, and when we come back, it's biscuit eating time. So it's been 15 minutes in the oven at 425 degrees, and they look to be about ready. So,
Sure smell good.
see, they're just nice and light brown on the top. You can kind of see the funny shape of the one that these were our scraps, but it will taste just as good.
More nooks and crannies for the butter and
There
the honey.
you go. And let's just take a look at one of these. They're hot.
Show the bottom. Look at that.
Nice brown on the bottom, moist on the inside.
Ready
And-
for some stuff to go on?
You know, what is a biscuit really but a delivery system for things like, we got apple butter, we got nice sweet butter, and we've got some of our local honey from our honey farm up here. And that's what biscuits are. They're good on their own, but they're even better with something you love on top. So, Buford, wish you were here, but we'll eat them in your honor. So, biscuits a la Buford at the cottage.
Made with love.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for being a part of this one.